It's 5 o'clock p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. We're going to start this afternoon with a live briefing from the South Korean government on the country's efforts to secure vaccines. There was an urgent meeting this afternoon called by President Moon Jae-in in which top officials discussed the vaccine supply situation and what can be done to ensure that South Korea gets enough of them. That briefing should start soon, and we can expect to hear about some of the outcomes of that meeting. There have been, of course, concerns about countries refusing to export doses of vaccines, which some are concerned could lead to unfair outcomes for other countries. Right now, South Korea is again administering the AstraZeneca vaccine for one and the Pfizer vaccine. It looks like officials are gathering at the briefing site, and we should go there momentarily. But this week, South Korea resumed doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine after having suspended them for a few days since last Wednesday, as officials looked into reports that there were possibly links between that particular vaccine and blood clots that have been reported rarely, but in several countries around the world. It looks like officials are moving into the briefing site, and as soon as they start, we will go there. It looks like they're taking the podium now. Let's listen in.
We are joined by Mr. Lee Ki-il. We are also joined by officials from the Ministry of Food and Drug Safety. And we have a sign language translation available for you as well. First of all, here is Commissioner Youn Yuh-Jung of the KDCA to brief us on the COVID-19 situation here in South Korea. I am Youn Yuh-Jung, Commissioner of KDCA, and here are some response measures to the COVID-19 outbreak. Here in South Korea, we have seen the third wave starting from November, which peaked in the third week of December and lately decreased. However, we have seen a stagnant rise in the number of daily infections in early January and February. However, we have seen another resurgence of the virus, and lately we have seen a rise in the number of infections in the non-metropolitan as well. And the risk factors are as follows. First is the ease of social distancing measures after February, and since then we have been seeing cluster infections stemming from multi-use facilities, which have led to local transmissions to also families and workplaces and so forth. And second, we have the prolonged third outbreak, and we also have many accumulated cases of asymptomatic patients in the local communities. And also globally, we look at the new variant influx into South Korea, and we also have new local transmissions of such new variants. This is alarming for us as well. However, on the other hand, we have positive measures. We also have massive testings that are being carried out. And after the rollout of vaccinations here in South Korea, we have seen a decrease in the proportion of infections at nursing hospitals and long-term care centers. Also a decrease in the number of critical symptom patients as well. And also the therapeutics, the antibody therapeutics, as well as the blood plasma therapeutics that have been developed here in South Korea have also been administered to the patients. And also to this end, we are also carrying out extensive testings, and also we aim to intensify our quarantine measures to ban and contain the influx of the new variants going further. And first of all, we need to also reach the herd immunity. And as for public bathhouses and preschools, we will be carrying out preemptive testings for workers who are working there, and also at call centers and also the logistics centers, as well as other workplaces that are prone to the 3C environment, namely confined, crowded, and close contact environment. We will also carry out extensive preemptive testings as well. And second, we also need to bolster the effectiveness of the testings, and also daily we have the basic capacity of the testings. However, regardless of the symptoms and regardless of their residential address, we will be expanding the testing capacity going further. And as for the people who have been recommended to get the testings as soon as possible by the doctors or at the pharmacies, we will also make sure that they also can carry out these testings, and we will also increase the coverage of the national health insurance for these testing so that there have been little burden on the individuals. Moreover, we will also utilize the self-diagnostic test kits available in going further as well. And third, we will also make sure that we need to streamline the testing period and testing process, that is, in order to have more people get tested in a short period of time. And also, we need to make a culture where people can get tested in a voluntarily manner. We will cooperate with many circles here in South Korea and locally. And also, we will also issue the administrative orders that also can encourage people to get tested as soon as possible. And fourth, in order to contain the influx of the new variants, we will also be bolstering and intensifying the quarantine measures for all of the foreign entrants. And also, when the people carry out the PCR testings on either the 5th or 7th day after entering to South Korea, we will be monitoring them going further. And as for all of the people coming in to from South Africa, that is, we will make sure that they are isolated at a specific facility before going into the local community. And fifth, starting from, in order to achieve our goal of herd immunity by November, we will be carrying out the vaccination rollout in full-fledged. And also starting from April, we will also make sure that we have local vaccination centers set up. And also we have the designated hospitals, which will be set up across the country. And we will make sure that they can be set up as soon as possible so that we can carry out the testings for about 88,000 people who will be eligible for the vaccinations going further. And with the special syringes, we will also provide enhanced speed of the vaccination so that we can carry out these vaccinations in a timely manner. And the AstraZeneca vaccine rollout will be given to the public starting from today as well. And we will also resume the AstraZeneca vaccines for those people over the age of 30. And also, as for possible blood clots or other rare cases of such blood clots cases, we will make sure we bolster our monitoring systems as well. And for lastly, we will also intensify our quarantine measures and treatment utilizing our antibody treatment here developed here in South Korea. And we will also take into consideration the suggestions and recommendations given by the EMA. And we will also listen to the experts' opinions here in South Korea as well. We will make sure they can be approved as soon as possible. Thank you very much. And next, we have Mr. Chun Hae-chul, who will be briefing us on the quarantine measures, intensified measures, that is. First of all, due to the COVID-19 and especially the prolonged battle against the COVID-19, I would like to also give my words of comfort for all of the public. During the past 1 year and 3 months, we have been able to also become a role model in terms of quarantine thanks to the public's participation. However, we have seen continued breaches of quarantine measures at certain spots and certain venues, and this is also hindering the effectiveness of our quarantine measures. First of all, we will make sure that the quarantine guidelines will be monitored by the police agency as well, and we will make sure that we have an intensified crackdown for 9 types of high-risk facilities, and we will also be based on principle of intolerance so that these breaches can be faced with stern legal measures going further. And we will also make sure that the minister will be responsible of such quarantine measures, meaning that they will be responsible for quarantine measures at specific facilities, and they will be going on these physical inspections themselves, and they will also establish a committee and also a consultative body so that they can reflect the opinions of the fields, and these opinions and updates will be also reported to the central disaster headquarters and also will be disclosed disclosed transparently to the public. And we will also spare no efforts to the other government ministries, and we will also make sure that all of the civil and public organizations that comply stringently with the quarantine measures, we will make sure that they will be faced with eased quarantine measures. And we will also have the authorities, the local authorities have the discretion to monitor their conditions on a regular basis, and we will also provide them more authority going further. Right now, we are at the crossroad of a possible fourth wave of outbreak here in South Korea. We will make sure we will also cut further local transmissions. We ask for your continued support and participation. Thank you very much. And next, we have Mr. Kwon Deok-chul, the Minister of Health and Welfare, who will be briefing us on the vaccination front. Fellow Korean citizens, I am Kwon Deok-chul, and I would like to address the vaccination updates, especially the procurement of the vaccination, which is of great concern of the public. First of all, we have a total of 79 million people who will be able to get the vaccines, and this is about 150% of our total population. And by June this year, we also have more than 1.8 million doses of the vaccines that have been either arrived or will be arriving in South Korea by June, and we will make sure that they are distributed on a timely manner to the entire country. And we are also exerting our full-fledged efforts to carry out a vaccination rollout plans. And to this end, we have been cooperating with many vaccine-related ministries, including the Ministry of Health and Welfare and the Food and Drug Safety, as well as the Foreign Ministry. And also this task force is convened by myself. And we will also make sure that we procure more vaccines going forward in a more timely manner. And all of these related aspects will be also made sure to procure more vaccines going further. And we will also cooperate with the KDCA, and we will make sure that these timelines of the vaccination rollout can be carried out as scheduled. And we will also continue to cooperate with the Pfizer and Novavax, as well as other drug developers. And in this process, we will make sure that we can procure more doses of the vaccines going further. Moreover, as for the vaccines that have been granted with the safety, we will make sure that they will also be faced with a streamlined administrative process, including the receiving of the green light and so forth. For instance, we will be easing any regulations in terms of the Novavax vaccines. And also, as for the U.S. exports restrictions in the materials, we are also seeing a delay in the exports and imports as well. However, we will be cooperating with the government ministries, and we will also be cooperating with the drug makers as well. And thanks to these negotiations, we will also, going further, develop the Novavax vaccines here in South Korea on top of the AstraZeneca vaccines. We believe that being able to manufacture these vaccines here in South Korea will be also helping us to speed up the vaccines here in South Korea. By early June, we expect that we can proceed with the manufacturing of the vaccines for the Novavax. And we also, myself, I had a relay conference with the heads of the drug makers, including Pfizer and AstraZeneca, Janssen, and so forth. We will also have continued negotiations with the option of opening the door of continued procurement of the vaccine doses going further. And I will be also opening my ears to the people who are working at the fields. And the government is also carrying out multifaceted efforts to secure more vaccines and based on safety. And we believe that it is very important for the Korean drug developers to develop our own homegrown vaccines. We are also providing full support for these drug makers, and we believe that they can carry out third trial testings here in South Korea starting from the latter half of this year. We are also providing more incentives and also mulling over more support for these for these companies as well. We will be increasing our budgets and allocation of the budgets to support these firms going further, and we will also provide a public and private matching platform so that going further in the long term we will provide mRNA vaccines here in South Korea. And we also have an mRNA experts to be part of our committee meeting, and we will also carry out international cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, right now we are at a very fierce competition to secure more vaccines globally. Many advanced countries around the world have developed their vaccines. However, the vaccine nationalism is also making other countries to face difficulties in procuring the vaccines. Nevertheless, the South Korean government has alleviated any of the challenges facing the import of the substitutes of the Novavax, and likewise we will also make sure that we deal with other challenges going further so that we can have more people inoculated in the third queue. And we will also provide extensive support and incentives for Korean drug makers so that we can develop our homegrown COVID-19 vaccines. We will make sure we exert our full efforts to help you return to a state of normalcy. Thank you very much. And next we have Mr. Kim Gang-nip, Minister of Food and Drug Safety, who will be explaining us on the details of the self-diagnostic test kits. I am Kim Gang-nip. Today we had a special meeting presided over by the President, and we have reported to the President the review measures for the self-diagnostic test kits. First of all, our ministry will be providing full support for the third trial testings for these COVID-19 vaccines developed here in South Korea, and we believe that they can be carried out with a less number of subjects, and we will also have a swift establishment of these targets of these clinical trials. And based on these guidelines, we will be providing a more precise guidelines going further, and we will be analyzing the vaccine substances going further, and we will also cooperate and coordinate fully with WHO as well as other global institutions. Moreover, as for Korean drug makers who do not have any experience in developing COVID-19 vaccines, we will also provide they have adequate amount of technological assistance going further. And today, Moderna has also asked for approval for the Korean Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, and this also will be carried out. The approval process will be carried out, and we will be reviewing this based on scientific manners as well. And as for Novavax, if they submit additional information, we will also proceed and speed up our review process. And as for the antibody treatment developed here in South Korea, we will be expediting the treatment development. And as for the regular treatment, we believe that this is effective to treat patients, and this can be only applied to a limited number of patients with certain medical conditions. And we believe that we will be consulting with the EMA going further so that this can be expanded to be applied and administered to a wider range of patients. And if we have the emergency approval request, we will make sure that these approval processes can be made in a swift manner, and we will make sure that other treatment that have been developed by other countries can be also imported to South Korea as soon as possible. Last but not least, we will also provide the quarantine measures, and together with these quarantine measures, we will make sure that we provide full support to introduce the self-diagnostic test kits, and we will provide the necessary guidelines. And even before the approval request process, we will make sure that these kits can be utilized at live treatment centers as well as other patients. And we will be reducing the process which took 8 months to only 2 months going further. And as for the products that have been approved for exports use. We will be evaluating those that have been developed by other countries that have a supplement amount of data and documents, and we will also make sure that they can be applied to use here in South Korea. The ministry going further, we will also carry out testing the assessment of these self-diagnostic test kits so that they can be delivered to the site as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
예, 지금부터 질의응답 시간을 가지겠습니다. 브리핑은 사회적 거리두기
We will
조치를
have the Q&A session
있고요.
right now.
And that'll conclude our coverage of this briefing. As we heard from the officials, the South Korean government is going to expand its testing capacity, also support those developing self-testing kits and also those working to develop and produce vaccines. Now, South Korea, for another 3 weeks, as the officials referenced, is sticking with the current level of social distancing, but also from today, bars and clubs will be closed in the greater Seoul area and in Busan. Restaurants can still let customers dine in until 10 p.m., but that could be moved to 9 p.m. if daily case numbers keep rising. Youn Yuh-Jung has this report.
South Korea is extending level 2 social distancing nationwide until May 2nd, as the country attempts to stem the spate of recent infections. One major change starting Monday is that all bars and clubs in the Seoul metropolitan area and in the southern port city of Busan have to close for the duration of the period. Restaurants abiding by social distancing will be permitted to have customers dine in until 10 p.m., but this could change to 9 p.m. if the virus situation worsens. Also, under the extended measures, 5 or more people are not allowed to gather together. Wearing a face mask has been mandatory outside for a while now, but starting Monday, people must wear them inside as well. People violating the new rule will be fined 100,000 Korean won, which is around $90. Meanwhile, health authorities are resuming the AstraZeneca vaccine rollout to more than 140,000 people either working at special education schools or as school nurses. This comes after South Korea temporarily put the vaccine on hold due to concerns over a potential link to blood clots. However, people under 30 will not be given the AstraZeneca vaccine going forward. They will instead be given alternative vaccines like those produced by Pfizer and Moderna. Youn Yuh-Jung, Arirang News.
In other news, South Korean electric vehicle battery makers have reached a last-minute settlement in the U.S. in a dispute over trade secrets. It's a win for both companies and both countries because it means SK Innovation will be able to finish building a plant in the U.S. state of Georgia, which will create jobs and keep SK in the American market. Kim Hyo-sun has the details.
South Korea's two battery makers, LG Energy Solution and SK Innovation, have reached a $1.8 billion settlement in their 2-year-long legal dispute over battery technologies in the U.S. Sunday's agreement was reached at the last minute, just before the deadline for an import ban on SK, following the U.S. International Trade Commission's issuance of a 10-year import ban on SK. While the two rivals have engaged in similar disputes over batteries before, the latest marks their largest, most high-profile and ugliest to date. The settlement amount is also known to be the largest of any global trade secret dispute, with pundits seeing that it reflects the future growth value of the industry, while at the same time acknowledging the importance of intellectual property rights protection. Under the terms of the settlement, SK will pay roughly $890 million in cash and another $890 million in royalties to its rival as compensation for stealing LG's crucial battery tech. In return, LG agreed to drop all legal action against SK both at home and abroad. The two companies said in a joint statement that they have agreed to compete in a sound manner and cooperate in a cordial way for the development of the battery industries of South Korea and the U.S. The settlement was widely welcomed by President Biden, who hailed it as a win for American workers and the U.S. auto industry. He then highlighted that his administration will build a strong U.S.-based electric vehicle battery supply chain, which will lead to the creation of quality jobs going forward. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
South Korea's exports rose in the first 10 days of this month thanks to robust shipments of chips and cars, and bouncing back from a low last year in the early days of the pandemic. So far this month, exports are up nearly 25% on year. Kim Jae-hee has the details.
South Korea's exports soared in the first 10 days of April, suggesting the economy is on the path to recovery from the pandemic. According to preliminary data from the Korea Customs Service on Monday, exports from April 1st to the 10th amounted to some 15 billion US dollars, up 24.8% compared to the same period last year. Taking into account the fewer working days at the start of this month, daily average exports were up by 32.6% on year. One expert says outbound shipments of semiconductors, South Korea's key export item, were one of the main reasons behind the growth in exports.
Exports are rising on year by a large margin. This is partly due to the base effect as exports suffered last year due to the pandemic. Other contributing factors are the rising demand for semiconductors and global economies recovering amid vaccine rollouts. I expect this recovery trend in exports to continue for a while.
Exports of semiconductors rose 24.8% on year in the first 10 days of April. Shipments of cars also gained 29.8%. Wireless communication devices added 52.5%, and petroleum products were up by 35.2%. By destination, shipments to China, South Korea's top trading partner, soared 27.6%, and those to the U.S. rose 22.6%. Shipments to Vietnam grew by the most, up 45.6% on year. Meanwhile, imports climbed 14.8% over the same period to reach nearly $16.7 billion, leading to a trade deficit of around $1.7 billion. The growth in imports was led by a surge in inbound shipments of crude oil, machinery, petrochemical products, and cars. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Youn Yuh-Jung, professor of economics at the Catholic University of Korea. Professor Young, thanks for making time today. Good to have you back on.
Happy to be here.
Well, a global shortage of semiconductors has prompted a response from the White House. They'll be holding a meeting with industry leaders tonight, Korea time. Samsung will be taking part, actually, but that could put Korea, some say, in a difficult position considering America's tensions with China. What do you say to that? And tell us about the Semiconductor Summit, Professor.
Okay, well, if you note who is invited to this summit, it obviously involves the IT companies like Google, Apple, Dell, Micron. It also involves semiconductor makers, Samsung, and from Taiwan, TSMC, Global Foundries, Intel, which also makes manufactures semiconductors. Some of their factories are in the United States. But also interesting is that they invited the automobile makers, GM and Ford, which is experiencing some production problems right now because of lack of semiconductors. So from this summit, there's probably going to be some specific automobile industry results and general results as well. For the specific automobile concerns. Automobile production has been in some problems right now because they do not have enough specialized semiconductors for their automobiles. Now, the problem, though, only partly deals with production capacity. The reason that these automobile companies are suffering the lack of chips is that at the beginning of last year when we got hit by the coronavirus, because these automobile manufacturers expected production to decline, they didn't order enough chips. Now, what happens this year is that they have extra demand, partially because of the coronavirus payments, relief payments, and partially because the richer segment of the population actually started demanding more cars, that they suddenly got a need for more semiconductors, but the semiconductor manufacturers will not produce additional chips because, well, these automobile chips are lower tech and lower profit margin. So so they do not want to give up the production that they have scheduled already. So that's going to be probably going to be addressed in this meeting. More generally, the United States wants a reliable and more secure supply chain, and they want more investment in the United States for semiconductor production capacity. And because Samsung and TSMC together form about 70% of the fabrication capacity worldwide, President Biden is probably going to pressure them to building more factories in the United States, as well as guaranteeing safety, separation, security from China, and more secure and more stable supply to the United States. So it's a mix. There's going to be good news for TSMC and Samsung, I think, because the U.S. is going to offer a lot of investment incentives. For Korea, I think the result is going to be more mixed because if you have more production capacity in the United States, that probably will mean less production capacity in Korea. And obviously, this will be probably be bad news for China because not only will they have more competitors abroad, but the chances of them getting the newest technology will be reduced by the summit.
Well, we'll look forward to reporting on that later in the week. Professor, stocks in New York ended last week with a nice gain, with the Fed reaffirming it's sticking to its monetary easing policy. The S&P and the Dow both closing at record highs. Tell us what's happening in the global markets and what you see ahead this week.
Okay, well, U.S. had a lot of good news last week. March employment report had a very good result, 917,000 jobs plus. U.S. growth was expected to be somewhere between 6.5 to 77%, and vaccination of the U.S. population is at about 25% of the population. So all of those good news probably meant that Dow helped Dow and S&P record record highs on Friday, but there may be a bit of a profit taking because the futures for today seems to be going down, so they'll probably end up a bit lower today. Europe, it's following the U.S. It's rising. The Euro Stock 600, which is an index of most popular European stocks, hit an all-time high. FTSE of UK fell on Friday, but it still had the best weekly performance since January. On the other hand, Asia, it was not that good a week. Nikkei was falling today, and Shanghai and Hong Kong was falling today as well. The reasons for that differ. They point out coronavirus and earnings report, which is supposed to come out this week and next week.
And Korean stocks today were up and down, but strength in tech shares led to a nice gain for the KOSDAQ. The Kospi more subdued. Tell us about the local markets.
Okay, well, even though the Kospi was subdued today, it ended today at 3,135.59. up 0.12%. That comes very close to record closing high of 3,160, which was recorded in January. And in April, foreigners bought 2 trillion won worth of stocks already. And the interesting thing is 4 out of the 5 largest stocks that were bought by foreigners were actually tech stocks, Samsung, Hynix, Kakao, and SK Telecom. So analysts are optimistic that foreigners will lead the recovery of IT stocks in Korea. KOSDAQ, on the other hand, did unambiguously better. It ended today over 1,000 at 1,000.65, and it's over the 1,000 line for the first time in 20 years and 7 months. The last time it hit more than 1,000 was September 14th, 2000 at 1,020.70.
That's quite the record, Professor. Well, looking ahead, we'll have a lot of data coming out this week on the Korean economy, including jobs and on the financial markets, that coming from the Bank of Korea. What's on your radar in the week ahead?
Well, the most important meeting for Korea will be BOK, Bank of Korea Monetary Policy Committee meeting, which is meeting on Thursday. They'll probably put the interest rate on hold, but how they evaluate the economy will be, I think, more important. On the U.S. side, CPI inflation is due to come out on Tuesday. It'll tell us about the concerns about inflation, whether they'll be realized. U.S. retail sales and University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index will also come out this week, and they will tell us whether the U.S. is on the solid path of recovery or whether the recovery may be a flash in the pan.
Got it. All right, Professor, we'll have to leave it there for today. Thank you, as always, for coming on, and we'll catch up again later in the week.
Thank you.
And another prestigious award for the South Korean actress Youn Yuh-Jung, who played the grandmother in the hit film Minari. This time she's won a BAFTA for Best Supporting Actress. That, of course, is the same category in which she's been nominated for an Oscar. Choi Jung-yoon reports.
Another piece of history has been made. South Korean veteran star and Oscar nominee Youn Yuh-Jung was named Best Supporting Actress at the 74th Annual British Academy Film Awards, making a first for a South Korean actor. Youn won the most prestigious UK Film Award on Sunday local time for her role in the recent drama film Minari. Minari depicts a family of first-generation Korean immigrants overcoming difficulties to make their American dream come true. Yoon portrays the unconventional grandmother Sunja and has been globally recognized for her performance. She beat off competition from contenders including Niam Algar from Calm with Horses and Kausar Ali from Rocks. During her BAFTA Film Awards acceptance speech, she first offered her condolences over the death of Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. She then delivered arguably the biggest laugh of the night, commenting that the award is more meaningful than ever as she was approved as a good actor from, quote, British people who are known as being snobbish.
Thank you so much for this award. Every award is meaningful, but this one, especially recognized by British people, known as very snobbish people, and they approve me as a good actor. So I'm very, very privileged and happy. And thank you so much.
Yoon's win at the BAFTAs, coupled with her previous Screen Actors Guild Awards triumph, could very well pave the way for another victory at the Oscars later this month. The veteran actress is on the road to winning Best Supporting Actress at the 93rd Academy Awards, where Minari has been nominated in 6 categories. Choi Jung-yoon, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.